above the surges, they saw his crest appear. All Rome sent forth a rapturous cry, and even the ranks of Tuscany could scarce forbear to cheer. This from Horatius, the Lays of Ancient Rome, by Lord Thomas Babington Macaulay, who lived from 1800 to 1859. Hi, I'm Dr. Charles Byrne. I'm a psychiatrist with a big interest in diets that help the heart and can prevent heart disease, and also diets that can help the planet at the same time by reducing greenhouse gas production.
And hello, I'm Sinead Dowler-Flynn. I'm a student of public health and a Bachelor of Medical Science, and I have a special interest in diets as well as climate health.
Yeah, and this week we're going to be talking about the two doctors who are really the founding fathers of plant-based, low-fat diets to prevent and even reverse heart disease.
But before we get into that, we're going to do a super quick review of the diets that we are talking about in this podcast and who we feel it would help. So we have spoken in some detail about these diets before and the dietary options and who they are helpful for in our first 4 podcasts. So if you want more details about that, be sure to check out the first 4 podcasts and have a listen to those. But briefly, Giles, who will these diets help?
Yes, thanks, Sinead. Yeah, these diets are for anyone who wants to keep their heart healthy and hopefully prevent heart and cardiovascular disease from developing. They're also good for your general health, not just your heart, because they're rich in antioxidants and they can help the blood circulation throughout your body, the blood flow to all the organs. So it's not just for the heart. The dietary options are also for people who have milder problems like raised cholesterol or blood lipids, or slightly raised blood pressure, or maybe pre-diabetic or overweight. These diets can help reduce the problem before it gets worse. And the diets are also for people who are actually suffering from heart or cardiovascular disorders and who may be on treatment and wish to take a diet and exercise that will help with their treatment. One of the dietary options that we've spoken about has actually been scientifically proved to reduce heart disease that's already present. And as we mentioned in all of our episodes, if you have a heart or cardiovascular disorder or any medical problems, please consult with your doctor before commencing on any of the dietary options that we're recommending or the exercise recommendations to make sure that your doctor is happy with it, first of all.
Perfect. Thank you, Charles. And just very briefly before we get into the meat of our episode today, what are the general principles of the diets that we're kind of advocating for?
Yeah, maybe meat is the wrong word.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
The diet focuses on whole grain, that's whole grain or wholemeal bread, brown rice and whole grain pasta. We encourage lots of beautiful multicolored vegetables and fruit.
Okay.
Also complex carbohydrates, such as the whole grain ones we've mentioned, or potatoes, sweet potatoes, turnips, and peas. These are all what we call starchy vegetables, which are complex carbohydrates, and they're all healthy, as long as you don't make them unhealthy by deep frying them or covering them in butter.
That's always tempting, but not a good idea to deep fry vegetables, no.
The other thing about the diets is they're all very low fat. So we aim to keep fats and oils at 20% or below of your daily calorie intake. We also aim to steer clear of the unhealthy saturated fats and to keep them to a bare minimum. So saturated fats are found, for example, in red meat and processed meat, in full-fat dairy products and eggs. So 2 of the options we're going to talk about are vegan, but there's also a flexitarian option which involves reduced meat consumption, and a lacto-vegetarian option in which you can have low-fat or no-fat dairy products.
Perfect. So as we said, this week we're going to talk about 2 doctors, and they are pioneers of plant-based, very low-fat diets for heart disease, which they found could even reduce heart disease, as we said. The heart disease that is already present. And they're both based in the United States, and they were involved with President Bill Clinton. Is that correct?
That's right.
So could you tell us, Charles, how did you come across these doctors?
Well, I mentioned in the last episode that after I had my heart episode, I began researching diets, and I started looking at vegetarian diets and how helpful they can be for your heart or if you have heart problems. And I found that the consensus among all the studies was that just by going vegetarian alone, you reduced your chances of having heart or cardiovascular disorders or dying from them by about 25% compared to taking a regular diet. But again, I was interested in plant-based and vegetarian diets particularly. So I went away from that point from the journals because I'd heard that President Bill Clinton, who had serious heart problems, but with doctors with a revolutionary approach, he'd managed to overcome the problems and had improved his health enormously. In fact, President Clinton was famous for his love of fast food. He loved burgers, French fries, chips, and his diet was very unhealthy. But as we're going to hear in a minute, it did cause him eventually to have serious heart problems, and he had to have a coronary artery bypass and stents, which we'll mention shortly. So what I did was simply, I didn't know who the two doctors were, so I simply Googled President Bill Clinton's doctor, and two doctors came up, Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and who President Clinton credited for helping with his recovery from heart disease by inspiring him to use a plant-based diet.
Yeah, and you were saying there was an interview you found.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I found from their names, I found a YouTube video, and it was fascinating. It was done by CNN's Wolf Blitzer. And he interviewed both President Clinton and also the two doctors, Dr. Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn. So this remarkable interview, which I think is still on YouTube, first of all, Wolf Blitzer played a clip that he'd done previously where he'd interviewed President Clinton about his diet and his recovery. So I looked at the video, and President Clinton, he looked much slimmer when I saw him, and he's usually kind of calm, friendly, confident person, but I thought, it must have been incredibly stressful for him and his family to go through all of that, the heart operations, and to have to contend with such a life-threatening illness. So he started the interview by describing the diet that he was on at that time, and I'm going to quote from his interview now. So he said, "I live on beans, legumes, vegetables, fruit. I drink a protein supplement every morning, no dairy. I drink almond milk mixed with fruit and a protein powder, so I get protein for the day when I start the day out. It changed my whole metabolism, and I lost 24 pounds. I got basically to what I weighed in high school." He went on to say, "I did it because after I had this stent put in, even though it's quite common that after you have bypasses, you lose the veins because they're thinner and weaker than the arteries. The truth is that it clogged up, which means that the cholesterol was still causing build-up in my vein that was part of my bypass. And thank God I could take the stents. I didn't want it to happen again. So I did all this research, and I saw that 82% of the people since 1986 who have gone on a plant-based, no dairy, no meat of any kind, no chicken, turkey. I eat very little fish. Once in a while I have a little fish, not often. If you can do it, 82% of the people who have done that have begun to heal themselves. Their arterial blockage cleans up. The calcium deposit around their heart breaks up."
82% is quite a significant amount of people. So you talked about Dr. Dean Ornish. So what research did Dean Ornish do to kind of advocate for this diet?
Yeah, President Clinton in that clip was referring to a research that Dr. Dean Ornish had done and was published in the Lancet Journal, where, and we're going to go back to that in a little while just to talk about that study in more detail. But basically, 82% of the patients who went on his very low-fat, virtually vegan diet, plant-based, at the end of a year, that 82% of that actually managed to reduce the degree of the coronary blockages that they had. In other words, they opened up the arteries in their heart to a degree, so more blood was flowing to the heart.
Yeah.
But just to mention what President Clinton the experiences that he had.
Okay.
What he actually had was, as I said, his diet was far from ideal for many years.
Yeah.
And he was famous for his love of fast food. So he had to have cardiac bypass surgery because of the heart disease. And later on, he had to have coronary stents inserted. So bypass surgery is where a blocked or partially blocked coronary artery is literally bypassed using a vein from the person's body.
Okay.
So that blood can continue to flow freely to supply the muscle at that part of the heart.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, if the cause is not removed, declogging up or atherosclerosis can start to happen again in the vein that's used for the bypass. So in the bypass, they take a vein from the person's own body for another part of it.
Okay.
And they use that to literally make a bypass around the blocked part of the coronary artery. But the vein is not quite as strong as an artery, and it is susceptible to the atherosclerosis as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
So cholesterol and fat start to become deposited in the wall of it, narrowing it, and a recurrence of the symptoms.
Yeah.
So he then had to go on to have a coronary stent, and that is a tube-shaped device.
Okay.
That's inserted into the coronary artery, or in his case, in the vein, which was bypassing it, in order to keep it open and to continue to supply the heart muscle with blood. So I mentioned a bit more about the interview. After that part where he interviewed President Clinton, or actually he referred to a previous clip where he'd interviewed him, he then spoke by video link to the two doctors.
Oh, you got the two doctors on.
Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn, who, like any other senior physicians, any other North American hospital, but they were very different.
Yeah.
Their thinking was laser focused on prevention and treatment by removal of the root cause of the illness. So they both came across as amiable and benevolent doctors, but they had a very clear message, and perhaps one that hadn't been generally listened to. So Dr. Esselstyn was first asked why his diet was so beneficial in heart disease. And he said he made the amazing statement that coronary artery disease is a toothless paper tiger.
What is a toothless paper tiger?
Yeah.
Is that like a aggressive toothless paper tiger?
Yeah.
Like aggressive.
He's kind of giving a double message that it shouldn't be something that we should be afraid of. He said that need never exist.
Okay.
And if it does exist, it need never progress. So these are very revolutionary statements.
Yeah.
He said that President Clinton had been willing to make the changes to remove from his diet those foods that we know damage the inner lining of the arteries. He also said, and this is the very positive thing, that the body has a remarkable capacity to heal itself once we remove those foods that damage the arteries. And he said, he criticized the medical profession. He said they'd fallen down in emphasizing too much on drugs, procedures, and operations that only treat the symptoms, but not the cause of the illness. He said that this is one of the few times since Hippocrates that doctors have not told patients enough about the causation of their illness. And so Dr. Ornish came and he agreed with Dr. Esselstyn, and he said, we tend to think that treatments have to be a new drug or some new high-tech procedure, that it has to be expensive to be effective. But he had done 33 years of research into diets, plant-based diets at that stage. And he said it's shown that simple changes that we make in our lives about what we eat, how we respond to stress, how much exercise we get, how much love and support we have, can actually reverse chronic illnesses like heart disease. And he said that he found in a study that, as President Clinton indicated, that 82% of the people who make these changes were actually able to reverse their heart disease.
Yeah.
So rather than getting a quick fix like a bypass or a stent, he addresses the underlying cause of the illness, and he said that unless you change what causes it, it will keep coming back.
So we're talking about like preventative medicine as opposed to like once someone has the disease, like obviously it's kind of harder to reverse a disease once you have it.
Yes.
So like for people listening at home, like how important is preventive medicine?
It's vitally important. You know, if we can stop these, if we can stop these illnesses starting in the first place, that's the way to go. It can be, as he's shown in his research, it can be reversed, but it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. It's better if you can make simple changes to your diet in the first place and put yourself at much less risk. And shall I go on and just say what Dr. Esselstyn was saying?
Esselstyn, I'd be interested to hear,
So he was asked if this diet with no meat and no dairy is for everyone or just, you know, it refers to what you're asking, Sinead. Is it for everyone or just those with heart disease?
Yeah.
Since we know, and he said that since we know these foods are injuring people, why would we want to have them on the menu of our school children? Why would we wait until people have heart disease? And he said that he referred to studies that when the autopsies were done on young American GIs who were killed in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, it was found that 80% of these young men already had gross evidence of coronary disease, and that could be seen without the need of a microscope. So it was evident.
So, like, they had, like, clogging in the arteries at such a young age as well?
You can see, we call these spots of areas of atherosclerosis on the inside of arteries, we call them plaques. Atherosclerotic plaques. And in the autopsies, these young men in their 20s already had atherosclerotic plaques in their arteries. And they'd been, as I say, tragically killed in war, but this process was already starting to attack their arteries and their heart arteries.
Yeah, that's mad.
So he said, if we're going to make a breakthrough in this epidemic of heart disease, we have to start at a young age.
Okay.
And in fact, we mentioned in one of the previous podcasts that some recent research, which was published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, showed that young people between the ages of 18 and 30 who go on plant-based diets and are followed up for 30 years have a massive 52% less chance of having heart or cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, that's
30
amazing,
years later.
isn't it? Yeah.
So if you can start at a young age, it's obviously
more beneficial. Yeah. Okay.
So Dr. Ornish said that you don't have to go on the most difficult dietary option. He said,
so it's not like one size fits all, like there's different options.
There's a spectrum of choices.
Yeah.
So he said, if you're trying to reverse a chronic disease like heart disease or early prostate cancer, and these diets, he's also shown have been helpful in prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to reverse diabetes or high blood pressure, you need to make bigger changes. But if you just want to lose weight or get your cholesterol down a bit, then you can start with making moderate changes, and that's enough. And, you know, if that's enough, that's great. But if you need to do more, then there are ways of doing more as well.
Of course, yeah.
What matters most is your overall way of eating. And even if you make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes. I have binges every now and then if I'm feeling down, or even if I feel in a good mood sometimes. If you go off your diet and eat the wrong things, what you need to do is just the next day start again and say,
absolutely.
And Dr. Esselstyn then mentioned that his own father had his first heart attack at the age of 43 years old. So that there was definitely a family history there.
Yeah, that's Dr. quite young, isn't it?
But he said that he had adhered to the diet, this plant-based diet, low-fat, for over 26 years, and it had been very successful for him.
Great.
And Dr. Ornish said what you include in your diet is as important as what you exclude. And he said there are hundreds of thousands of protective substances in these plant-based diets. And in addition, he recommended that people take 3 or 4 grams of fish oil a day. Now, and the reason was because omega-3 fatty acids can be very protective. When he says 3 to 4 grams, that would be the equivalent of, we said in a previous episode, of 1,000 micrograms of combined EPA and DHA, the marine omega-3. But to get that much, you have to maybe take 3 or 4 grams in total. Now, he was taking fish oil, but as we've said, you're going to get exactly the same omega-3 in algae-derived oils now, which have even more advantage because the fish oils can have pollutants in them.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ornish said that these omega-3 fatty acids are beneficial to the heart and that they could actually reduce the incidence of sudden cardiac death by up to 80%. And they also reduce the risk of prostate cancer and breast cancer. And if you're a pregnant woman or breastfeeding, it can actually raise your child's IQ.
That's right.
So these omega-3 supplements, which we recommend in our diet as well, and we've spoken about previously, are very beneficial. There were different views between Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish about whether fats or oils should be used at all.
Could I ask you what your opinion on that is?
I go with Dr. Ornish, who thinks they can be used in small quantities, very much in moderation.
Try to cut down fats.
Yeah. It's very difficult to cut out oils and fats altogether.
Yeah.
So I think if you can keep it, as I say, our general target is 20% or less of your daily calorie intake should be fats and oils.
And what was Dr. Esselstyn's view on it?
His view was that they should be cut out altogether.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no
Very severe.
no fats or oils whatsoever.
Okay.
And
now that is difficult, especially in kind of modern diet. Yeah.
So it's totally plant-based diet. The two doctors said they didn't want to wrestle with each other over this because they had so much more in common.
Yeah.
And they were striving together in the same kind of general direction.
Yes, yeah.
And the basic point both was that eating whole foods and getting away from processed foods, getting away from dairy, although I take, as I say, I take low-fat or zero-fat dairy. But definitely, I think what they meant is getting away from full-fat dairy. He said Dr. Esselstyn's motto is avoid eating anything with a mother or anything with a face. That would include, obviously, meat, fish, chicken. And he also went on to say it's incredible how powerful the body can be. And if we're going to, in recovery, and if we're going to have a seismic revolution in health, which is really right at our fingertips, the major behavior that has to change, interestingly, is our food. That's the key card that trumps everything.
Okay.
And Dr. Ornish agreed with Dr. Esselstyn, and he said, when you make these changes, because these mechanisms are so dynamic, you're opening up your blood vessels by stopping the atherosclerosis starting.
Okay.
The mechanism is so dynamic, your brain gets more blood, so you think more clearly, you have more energy, your skin gets more blood, so you don't age as quickly.
Nice.
And even your sexual organs get more blood in the same way that Viagra works.
Well.
So, yes, you'll probably live longer, but you'll also feel better on these diets. And that's what's sustainable and produces more joy and pleasure and freedom. And when you make these changes, most people find that they feel better quite quickly. And it reframes the reason for changing diet from a fear of dying to a joy of living. And that's what's sustainable. So
that's all incredibly interesting. Unfortunately, it is time for a break. So if you're listening at home, why not put on a cup of tea and get yourself a little plant-based snack? We'll be back in a moment.
If you find what we've been saying in this podcast interesting and you want more information, then a fuller description of everything is available in my book, which is called Save Your Heart, Lose Weight and Help Save the Planet, and it's available on Amazon.
So before the break, we were talking about Bill Clinton, Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn and the diets that they recommended to reduce heart disease and even reverse heart disease. So just to continue on from that, so we were talking about how the doctors were in the interview, and so I remember reading in your book that Mr. Blitzer finished the interview saying that it was a great shout out from President Bill Clinton to get for the doctors. And I think for myself, it's such a good way of getting the message out there, like a celebrity, like such a massive celebrity endorsement for these diets, you know?
And he's living proof that it works. You know, he
Yeah.
had very significant heart problems, and there he was looking healthy and happy in the interview, and he'd lost so much weight. He's kind of living proof of the effectiveness.
It's standing, yeah.
Yeah. So my own reaction when I watched this video, I felt stunned and also very joyful after watching it. I mean, this was revolutionary, and it held out so much hope for literally millions of people who suffer from heart and cardiovascular disease.
I suppose, like, from your own experience, like, you were diagnosed with your own cardiac issues. So finding this information and finding that it could actually be reversed through diet, like, how did that impact you, like, because it was your own experience as well, you know?
Oh, it was a massive impact, because I remember after I had the heart episode, I felt very lost. I mean, I know the doctors were making certain recommendations about exercise and they wanted me to go on a statin, etc. But I still felt very lost about exactly what I should be doing. And when I saw this interview and heard what they had to say, I found it very inspiring, and here was a very clear direction that they were giving. So I felt literally joyful when I saw the interview.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And, you know, as Dr. Esselstyn said, it could cause a seismic change in healthcare and a new approach to these disorders. So what I decided then to do was I wanted to look in greater detail at the work of the two doctors.
Okay, so will we start with Dr. Dean Ornish then? Yeah. And I know he did a few studies, but his first one was in medical school, if I'm correct. Is that what you found in your research?
That's right. Remarkably, he started off his research as a medical student.
Mad.
So just to say a bit about Dr. Ornish's background, he's Dr. Dean Ornish is clinical professor of medicine at University of California, San Francisco. He's actually a professor of preventive medicine, and so he should be referred to as Professor Ornish, but in all of his books he refers to himself as Dr. Ornish, so I'll stick with that as well.
Okay.
He's also president of the non-profit Preventive Medicine Research Institute, located at Sausalito, California, which is incidentally a beautiful place. I visited Sausalito.
Oh, did you?
I rented a bicycle and cycled over the Golden Gate Bridge to Sausalito.
Yeah, amazing.
It's just the most beautiful little town, California, on the sea. But he is originally from Texas, and he graduated from Baylor College of Medicine.
Okay.
And he completed his internship and residency at the prestigious Massachusetts General Hospital, and he was also previously a clinical fellow in medicine at Harvard.
So he's a very accomplished chap by the sounds of things.
Yes, yeah. His book, called Dr. Dean Ornish's Program for Reversing Heart Disease, was originally published in 1990. So I ordered it through the post, and I read it quickly and with great interest. And actually, through all the intervening years since 1990, his approach has remained remarkably constant, with virtually no changes in the central principles.
Okay.
And talking about California, his books, I think, are imbued with the spirit of California, because as well as the changes in dietary practice, he strongly emphasizes changes in lifestyle, which include exercise, stress relief, yoga, meditation, cultivating love, intimacy, and friendship in our lives.
Okay.
And he acknowledges the spiritual inspiration from an Indian-born guru called S.S. Satchidananda. And in his first book, he has a chapter called Opening Your Heart to a Higher Self, which emphasizes the spiritual element to his program. Now, you know, that's his part of a program, but we've been mainly emphasizing the diet and exercise components, which I feel are the most crucial parts of it.
Yeah.
So in his original research, as you were saying, he was still a medical student, and he describes how in 1977, as a student, he became very interested in diet and stress and exercise and heart disease. And he took a year off between his second and third years of medical school to do a unique research project. And luckily he was supported by his chief of medicine, who he provided testing facilities for him.
Fantastic.
So he found a group of patients who had already had coronary heart disease and chest pain, but were not having cardiac bypass surgery. He said it was very difficult to find those patients because anyone who was eligible was having bypass surgery in Houston at that time. In Texas. He was still in Texas as a medical student. But he'd find 10 people who were willing to participate in the study. And remarkably, he obtained agreement of the Plaza Hotel in Houston to donate 10 of their rooms for a month for him to conduct the study. So he must have had considerable powers of persuasion as a young man. So he said that he hadn't enough clinical experience to feel jaded and to know that it was, quote, impossible to reverse heart disease. And he told the patients that he had a program for them that might help them get better. And he said that this was the first hopeful thing that most of them had heard since being diagnosed with their conditions. So Dean Ornish had these 10 patients, and the dietary component of the program that he put them on in the Plaza Hotel was essentially a low-fat, essentially a vegan diet, but he did allow also a small amount of, about a cupful of skim milk, and they could also have some egg white as protein, so it wasn't completely vegan.
Yeah, but very close.
Yeah, and it was also whole food and low in sugar and low in simple carbohydrates. So what are simple carbohydrates? They're different kinds of sugars and processed grains, which are so common in our modern diet. And once these are absorbed, they raise the blood sugar very rapidly in the body. They're mainly processed foods with the natural fiber removed. For example, white bread and sugars, as we said, or cakes or cookies, they're all simple carbohydrates. And on the other hand, complex carbohydrates are not usually processed. They're like whole grain foods, as we've said, whole grain bread, pasta and brown rice, and also the starchy vegetables like potatoes. Sweet potatoes, turnips. And in contrast, when you eat those, they raise the blood sugar very slowly in the body.
Yeah.
They can be more, and they also go down much more slowly. It's a much more gradual slope of increase and decrease of the blood sugar. So that the complex carbohydrates can be viewed as more natural foods, the kind of foods that our ancestors ate before factory production of foods.
Fantastic.
And just the other thing is, it's not just a vegan diet. There's a misconception that a vegan diet is automatically a low-fat diet.
Totally, yeah.
But it's not. Although usually lower fat, it's not always the case. If a lot of oil is used in the vegan diet, either for cooking or as an addition, such as in salads, it becomes not low-fat. And a small number of vegan foods, for example, avocados, coconuts, and nuts in general, contain a lot of fats. And coconut especially contains a lot of the more harmful saturated fat.
Yeah.
So I don't eat avocado, coconuts, and nuts. I take in very small quantities, if at all. And they should be generally avoided. But however, nearly all of the other vegetables and fruits that are very low in fat in their natural states. So that's basically the dietary part. And then the other non-dietary components of Dr. Ornish's program, we've already mentioned, that the yoga, meditation, exercise, and the heated group therapy.
So what were the results of that study in the Plaza Hotel? It was clearly a positive. If he wasn't deterred after his first study, it's clearly a positive result.
It was very much so, yeah. So the 10 patients started on the regime. As I said, they all had serious cardiac disease, and Dr. Ornish described the startling effects as follows, and I'm quoting him. They all experienced remarkable improvements after 1 month on our program. People who had incapacitating chest pain, even with minimal exertion, showering, shaving, gentle sexual activity, walking short distances, became essentially pain-free.
Wow.
And were able to do all of those activities without difficulties.
Fantastic.
In most cases, these improvements began to occur after only a few days.
Only a few days?
Yeah.
Mad.
And many of those who had been out of work for years were now able to return to work full-time.
Oh, wow.
Everyone reported feeling more energy, less depression, and a greater sense of well-being.
What a fantastic result, especially from his first study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also described how their cholesterol levels and blood pressure measurements significantly decreased at the end of the month. In those days, they were using fairly primitive scans, heart scans called exercise thallium heart scans, which measured blood flow to the heart. And he wrote, during this test, we found that most patients showed significant improvements in coronary blood flow after only 30 days.
Wow.
However, when he presented his results to the other doctors, they were treated with skepticism. Some doctors thought this couldn't be possible. He was told there must have been some mistake in the test, the test must have been wrong.
Okay.
And there was skepticism about the accuracy of the scans, although they were routinely used in clinical practice at the time. So true, he hadn't used a randomized control group who had no a group receiving treatment as usual to compare the treatment with. But the summary of their results was published in the journal Clinical Research.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll talk more about Dean Ornish next week and his research. Do we want to do the recipe of the day today?
Absolutely.
I'm excited for this one. I love the recipe of the week. I think it's my favourite part of the podcast.
And there's an Irish influence. This week, because it's vegan sausages and potato cakes.
Fantastic. So before we get into our recipe of the week, we're going to take another quick break. So we'll see you in a moment.
So our recipe of the week this week is vegan sausages and potato cakes. So if you have time for a more leisurely breakfast, not rushing out the door as we are most of the time to get to work, a late breakfast or a brunch, or this is also good for a light lunch.
Okay.
It's a good way to use up any mashed potato that you didn't use up the evening before.
Okay.
Potato cakes are a traditional Irish dish, and there are many different ways of making them, but this is my own healthy version of potato cakes.
Fantastic.
So the ingredients are 4 cupfuls of mashed potato, 1 tablespoon of wholemeal flour, 2.5 mils or milliliters of rapeseed or canola oil,
Okay.
4 vegan sausages.
Do you have any recommendations? Sorry to interrupt.
No. Well, I find Linda McCartney's vegan sausages good.
They're delicious as well.
Yeah, they've improved the recipe of those, and I like the new recipe they have in Linda McCartney's vegan sausages. There's an Irish one called Rod's sausages.
Rod's are good too, yeah.
You can use any variety of vegan sausages for this recipe.
Okay.
And then the final ingredient is 1 can of baked beans. And the fat content per person for this recipe is about 8.1 grams, which is not bad. So just one note to make, when you're making mashed potato, it's important not to use milk, butter, or any spread in with your mashed potato. The amount of potato used is not crucial. About 4 cups of mashed potato should be sufficient.
Okay.
So if you don't have leftover mashed potatoes from the previous evening, simply peel and boil several potatoes to give the required amount.
Yeah.
The potatoes can be halved to make the cooking time shorter, and boil them, and when they're cooked, you can, as we've described in a previous recipe, you can test them with a fork.
Yeah.
They should be slightly firm in the middle, you don't want them too mushy. Then drain your potatoes, mash them in a saucepan with a potato masher. When they're cooled, add 1 heaped teaspoon of wholemeal flour. This is the really heavy 100% wholemeal flour.
Okay.
And mix that with the mashed potatoes using your hands. Add some salt and pepper, but remembering to keep the salt on the low side.
Okay.
And then you mold the potato and flour mixture with your hands into circular shapes, about 11 to 12 centimeters in diameter and about 3 centimeters in depth. And then take a large non-stick frying pan and put in 2.5 mils of rapeseed or canola oil.
Okay.
Turn the heat up high, spread the oil around the pan. When it's hot, you add the potato cakes. They need to be cooked for some time because you also need to cook the flour with the potato. So cook it on a high heat, turning it intermittently as they gradually become browner on the surface. If they start to break up, gently mold them back into shape using a wooden spatula. They take a long time to cook through in the middle, approximately 20 minutes, so keep turning them regularly. And a good, as I say, non-stick frying pan is important. At the same time, cook vegan sausages on the grill, turning frequently. If they're frozen, you can defrost them beforehand in the microwave for about a minute or less. And cook the vegan sausages until they're golden brown on the grill. Meanwhile, pour a can of baked beans into a saucepan and heat, stirring it regularly. As an alternative to baked beans, you can use tomatoes, which are halved, and you can fry them between the potato cakes or mushrooms if you have them. They can also be cooked on the same pan. So then serve your potato cakes with your sausages and baked beans on a warm plate for a hearty breakfast or a light lunch or a brunch.
Lovely. So it's like a fry, but good for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a way of getting a fry in, but not damaging your heart. Yeah.
Without all the fats and oils, which will make your coronary arteries smile.
Yeah. Delicious. Yeah, I absolutely love potato cakes. They're like one of my favorite.
And they don't.
Favorite things.
As we say, they don't have to be unhealthy. They're
No,
perfectly
yeah.
healthy. This way.
Yeah. Potatoes are really good for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm definitely, as I said, I'll be trying that one. So we'll be putting up all our weekly recipes on social media. Our social media is Your Heart, Our Planet, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're also really, really keen to hear your comments, guys, and questions. So let us know if there's anything that you want us to talk about or any burning questions you have. Definitely send them into the podcast so you can check those social media out. And we might even read your comments out on the podcast if you leave us interesting comments. So please do. Also, please just subscribe to us on social media and you can share our posts with your friends because they might be interested as well.
Yes, Sinead. And finally, if you find what we've been discussing interesting, you'll find a lot more information on these topics in my book, Save Your Heart, Lose Weight and Help Save the Planet, which is available on Amazon as a paperback or on Kindle. And we look forward to being with you all again next week. Bye now.
Definitely tune in next week for more on Dean Ornish. We will talk to you again. Goodbye.